I want to tell you a story that I think maybe you'll relate to. So, I'm an author. I've written over a dozen books, and I'm a blogger. I've been writing essays about creativity for 20 years. And I'm a teacher, and I'm a video maker, and a bunch of other things. But I want to tell you about the best job I've had, being an artist. I was a full-time artist for 7 years, a very successful one, actually. Here I am at the beginning of my career, an emerging talent, not represented by a gallery, no work in any museum collections, no real income to speak of. So far, my work had only been shown on refrigerators. But critics loved me. My grandmother thought that I was a genius, and so did her hairdresser and the mailman. I made art in all kinds of ways, in all kinds of media. I like to draw. I painted, I sculpted. I also used to write plays, and I would act in them too. I made up songs. I did impressions, fart sounds. I danced. I made awesome forts out of sofa cushions. There were no limits to my creativity. And I didn't need to be taught how to be creative. It was just in me, just like it seems to be for kids everywhere, including you. We're all born with this urge to create built into us, all of us. Art wasn't just for artsy kids. Everyone did it. Even my friends who grew up to be bankers or dentists or librarians, we were all artists. Being creative was what we did all day, and we were so confident about it. I didn't stop to judge what I was making. I didn't care what anybody else thought about it. I wasn't worried about the consequences. Art making was a tool for interacting and exploring. It was how I made sense of the world around me. I created logic and order and relationships on paper. I expressed how I felt, my inner thoughts, my questions, my fears. It was essential. It was natural. But then it all ended. My art career dried up, and the dark ages of adolescence began. So what happened to me, to this wonderful artist that I'd been? What was on my mind instead of constant creativity? Well, here I am around the time that my career ended. My mother was still cutting my hair, but I did have a new mustache. Instead of drawing, I became consumed by the joys of being a teenager, self-conscious, judgmental, worried about being cool, about fitting in. And I'd also come to understand the truth about drawing. I'd come to the conclusion that art just isn't practical. It wouldn't get me on the football team. It wouldn't get me a basketball scholarship. It wouldn't even get me a date. It was not cool. It was too different. And my greatest fear, it was potentially embarrassing. Well, eventually I came up with this theorem. Drawing is no longer just a game. It's art, capital A art. And if you make art, you're an artist. And being an artist, it's an all or nothing game. I'd either become insanely famous and wealthy and successful, or I'd just be another loser working at Starbucks or a record store. Of course, the odds of being a success are unbelievably impossible. So I concluded that if I kept making art, I would doom myself to endless misery and failure. Drawing equals failure, QED. So how did I come up with this analysis? Well, it's what the world told me. Every movie, every grown-up said the same thing. Van Gogh, right? Insane, a failure, a child, a suicide, never sold a painting, cut off his ear, shot himself in the wheat field. Artists are tragic figures. They're outsiders. They're weirdos. They're the last thing that you would want to be. Or they're con men, foisting incomprehensible hogwash on the unsuspecting public, like Jackson Pollock, who made paintings that any 4-year-old could do, like this piece that recently sold at Sotheby's for 18 gazillion bucks. And success didn't save Pollock. He was a DWI. He died in a car crash. So art means death, a scary, lonely death, la vie bohème. Artists starving in garrets in Paris, catching syphilis from their prostitute model girlfriends who are also dying of consumption, dying young and unknown. So better to go to law school, to business school, to some kind of grown-up school. And so I gave up art altogether. I put away my crayons and my paints, and I stopped drawing. I didn't go to art school or design school. I went to Princeton. I played rugby. I drank beer. I studied political science. And then I did what many lost creative souls do. I went into advertising. I became a copywriter. I worked on lots of big campaigns for big brands. I did Super Bowl commercials. I won awards, and I climbed the corporate ladder, and eventually I became chief creative officer. I was super important, or so it seemed. But if you were going to look over my shoulder in one of these big corporate meetings, you'd see that that little artist was still in there. He was still working away. He was still making stuff, not caring that grown-ups didn't notice. And it took me many, many years to realize that the little artist was who I actually was, if only I'd come out and play with him again. You have that little artist deep inside you too, waiting for you to stop worrying about grown-up stuff and to start listening to yourself again. Buy her some crayons. Buy him some paints. And let's get back to playing. Hey, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like more, well, subscribe to this channel and I'll let you know the next time we put one up. But also subscribe to my free weekly newsletter. Every Friday I send out an inspirational essay to kick you in the butt, get you moving, get you out of the doldrums, get you back to work, give you perspective, whatever you need. Sign up free at Danny'sEssays.com. See you next time.